Over the years, video games have come a really long way. The market for them has been drowning Mario mushrooms like there's no tomorrow. The PS4 has sold almost 40 million units, and the Xbox One has sold almost 20 million. And the games have only gotten bigger, faster, smarter, and occasionally weirder. With all the choices available, it's no surprise that there are some pretty niche gaming experiences out there. But as you'll see, that's not necessarily a good thing. These are the 10 most unique video games. Number 10 is Penn & Teller's Desert Bus. You know Penn & Teller is the magicians who've been fooling audiences around the world for decades. But you may not know that they also designed the most irritating video game of all time. It's called Desert Bus, and the rules are very simple. You have to drive a bus through a desert on one long straight road from Tucson, Arizona to the bright lights of Las Vegas. The twist is, the game plays in real time. The road is completely straight, and there's almost zero scenery, apart from the occasional plant and sign. But you can't just kick back and do nothing. The bus is always drifting slightly right, and if you come off the road, you get towed back to the start, also in real time. The reward for completing the grueling 8-hour drive from Tucson to Las Vegas is just a single point. And then you're probably wondering, what happens if you actually bother to drive all the way to Las Vegas? Congratulations! Not only did you earn an entire point, but now you get to drive all the way back to Tucson from Las Vegas. The game is actually a clever piece of satire. Penn & Teller were irritated by the anti-video game lobby, who claimed that games made people violent and antisocial. So they thought, what if you had a game that did reflect the monotony of a quote-unquote real activity? Surely the game would be unplayable. And it is very, very unplayable. But in a pleasant twist, Penn & Teller's Desert Bus has built a cult following over the years, with many playing it for charity events. Number 9 is Imagine Babysitters. If you're not ready for the thrill ride that is actual babysitting, don't worry. You can put in hours of practice without having to leave your home or to deal with any children. Flip open your Nintendo DS, and there you go. You can tickle them, feed them, change their clothes, and even teach them how to drum, because there's nothing a parent loves more than an infant who knows how to noisily destroy things. The infants in this game are not all cuteness and fat cheeks, though. You must deal with their various screams and smells as well, within the game that is. All in all, this strange game left people wondering why someone would pay for a game that simulates the somewhat unpleasant experience of babysitting. Number 8 is NSYNC Get to the Show. Why not wear your thumbs out being NSYNC's biggest fan, which involves doing a number of largely repetitive tasks for no money. In this game, you get to play as a lackey for the NSYNC and essentially complete repetitive tasks for them in a video game. You get to drive them around, tell groupies to be quiet because they're trying to sleep, as well as carry around burgers on your head like a performing dog. The game was released on the Game Boy Color, but it was definitely targeted at the band's fan base rather than the gaming world at large, since the gameplay was incredibly easy. The designers were relying on a teenage love of JT to get you through some of the very unimaginative minigames. Your reward, or punishment depending on how you feel, for being an NSYNC lackey for a few days was being forced to sit through their concert at the end. You got some choice over the background, but that was about it. The most frustrating part of the whole experience was that this message was often your only reward for completing the game's repetitive tasks. They are not only the band to jump on this bandwagon, though. Everyone from Hannah Montana to the Beatles have created a video game experience. Games like these are usually just to milk the fans of a famous band. And in some cases, these types of games can be a real cash cow. Aerosmith, for example, actually made more money from appearing on Guitar Hero than they did in any of their previous album sales. Number 7 is Bible Adventures. And if playing with Justin Timberlake has you thinking impure thoughts, then you can find redemption in the holy joy that is Bible Adventures. This game is actually made up of 3 smaller games. The first is Noah's Ark, where you play as the famous boat builder and animal matchmaker. You use his apparently unlimited strength to wander around picking up various dogs, cows, sheep, and horses, and stacking them above you like a weightlifter in a circus. If you were lucky, you would occasionally pick up a piece of scripture, which you could read then on screen. The second game was Baby Moses, where you play Moses' sister and Moses is a little baby. Since you are a terrible sibling, You can throw baby Moses around like a football while evading the guards who are trying to drown him in a river. And they thought Grand Theft Auto taught kids bad behavior. And finally, you get David and Goliath, where you play as David. You have to herd your sheep around using your sling to protect them from lions. All in all, Bible Adventures was a ham-fisted Christian game that openly ripped off Super Mario Bros. 2, but in its defense, it's a game that God would approve of. Number 6 is Seaman. A big sailor in Japan, Seaman was like having an incredibly creepy pet. Your job is to care for a little critter from the mysterious seaman species in a laboratory. This game required intuition to figure out how exactly to care for this strange creature, and the challenges varied as it grew from a few cells to a fully formed, quote-unquote, frogman, an amphibious creature with a frog body and a human face. The game actually required you to load up your game every single day, or your horrific fish monster might die. It was one of the few games to use the Sega Dreamcast microphones so you could soothe your fish, sing it songs, and ask why your parents didn't love you enough to buy you a real pet. But this really was the selling point, since once your seaman had evolved far enough, you could begin to use its slightly shaky voice recognition to chat with your digital friend. This game actually sold 1 million copies around the world on various platforms, and was the third biggest game in Japan around 2004. The English language version was even voiced by the Star Trek legend Leonard Nimoy. Number 5 is Hatoful Boyfriend. This is another Japanese game, but this one ramps the weirdness up to 11. You play a girl at a high school, and all you do is choose from on-screen text, deciding what you want to say and do with various characters who are a series of boys who are interested in you. It sounds pretty normal, and the gameplay as a visual novel means the whole appeal is the storyline. So it's just some teenage love drama, right? Not exactly. Firstly, all of the boys are pigeons who now populate the entire planet thanks to an avian flu disaster. The original free version came out in 2011, and its popularity has led to full versions and remakes across various platforms such as Windows, Linux, and PS4. The success of this game has left many onlookers confused as to why a random concept such as a game about pigeons and dating would ever catch on. Number 4 is Who's Your Daddy? This game is actually a minor work of genius. It's a 2-player PC game where one plays the dad and one plays the baby. The dad has to try to keep the baby alive, while the person who plays the child has to try to kill themselves as quickly as possible. To accomplish this, you can eat batteries, drink bleach, hide in the oven, and stick a fork in the socket to toast yourself with a nice electrocution. The dad has to run around making everything safe, and you can complete a number of mini-challenges to gain power-ups, such as changing the batteries in the smoke detector and clearing up your little suicidal child's toys, presumably so you can combine one of his many funerals with a yard sale. The game was funded through Kickstarter, and at the end of 2015, it was approved on Steam Greenlight. And by all accounts, this game is only going to explode in popularity over the coming years, probably because it's one of the most innovative multiplayer games ever to be created. Number 3 is That Dragon Cancer. The premise of this game is that you play out a series of events around a baby with terminal brain cancer. Sometimes you are the parent trying to stop the crying, a sibling trying to entertain him, and you even start out as a little duck who collects bread in the pond. That Dragon Cancer was developed by Ryan and Amy Green and their small team called Numinous Games. Their son Joel was diagnosed at 12 months, and the game was created while he was still alive, so its final form was set after he died in 2014. It's a point-and-click adventure of sorts, but it's less of a game and more virtual reality of the heart, where you get to feel the frustration and sadness of what these people felt, as well as a way for the parents to document pieces of their son's life. The cancer is often seen lurking around the environment as a black twisted shape, so even when you have the warm glow of sunshine and the recordings of little Joel's actual voice, you're still aware of that dragon's ever-present shape. The name That Dragon Cancer comes from the allegory they would use to describe what Joel was going through to both him and his brother. The game itself is really beautiful, and we promise we won't tell anyone if you shed the occasional tear. Number 2 is Space Giraffe. This arcade game follows a classic history all the way from Space Invaders. There's some ship things. You're a ship thing. You need to shoot the other ship things and not let them shoot you. But that is about where the similarity ends, because while Space Invaders is as repetitive as Penn and Teller's Desert Bus, Space Giraffe is like being force-fed LSD while on a roller coaster. You're a giraffe firing a range of weapons, and your enemies come at you over a three-dimensional grid in a similar way to the 1981 arcade game Tempest. The backgrounds are a formless visualization of color, and as the game gets more intense, things explode in flashes of color, and it becomes an epileptic's worst nightmare. The audio is equally crazy, and you need to combine the two if you really want to get any good at the game. Because if you aren't good, the game will tell you that you're quote-unquote a bit rubbish. This game is a bit like giving yourself synesthesia, which is a condition where your senses overlap. For some, this game is an incredible twist on a classic format. For others, it is hours of unicorn-colored insanity and a totally unplayable mess. And number 1 is Prison Architect. Prison Architect is less of a game and more of a training tool. And, in a depressing bit of realism, the aim of the game is not to make your prisoners better people, but to extract as much money as possible from them during their incarceration by forcing them to work in sweatshops and spending as little money as possible on their well-being. Playing Prison Architect is a bit like Anti-Sims. Rather than building a mansion for your beautiful family, you are choosing how many benches there are in the prison cafeteria, and whether you should cut corners and only feed the inmates mashed potatoes. Although you do occasionally get to suppress riots and stop escape attempts, if you're having fun with events like this, you're actually not playing the game correctly. The objective is to have your prison be an uneventful and controlled place where people quietly go about making you money without much trouble. All in all, the game is about as much fun as running an actual prison, and there is also a certain irony to someone playing this for hours on end in a dark and stuffy room, ironically becoming a prisoner themselves. For more top lists like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to keep up with our latest videos, hit that bell icon on mobile. Or if you're on desktop, hit the gear icon and send me all notifications. It really helps us out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.